Hi everyone. I did my hot topic presentation on private schools. So my first guiding question that I came up with was how are private schools dealing with funding issues during COVID-19? Through research, the first thing I found is that private schools actually started getting a federal grant, which was the CARES grant. Betsy DeVos actually ruled that private schools would now be granted extra money to help deal with COVID-19 expenses. So I got an article from that, and I actually just saw in the news that that's being challenged right now. So that's going to court to see if private schools are actually eligible to these federal grants to help them survive the pandemic. Private school funding has actually been a big issue because all of their funding comes from families and church donations, and with a lot of people being laid off right now, they can't afford to send their students to private schools. And along with that, there are extra necessities and cleaning supplies, masks, non-touch appliances that have to be purchased. So that's another expense that they're all having to deal with right now. And I went on for my teacher interview. I asked, the teacher I interviewed is actually a local private school teacher in Claremont, and she said that they have been, their budget has been completely redirected with the needs of COVID-19. They've done proper sanitizing, cleaning, and appropriate CDC guidelines for students and staff. Money has also been relocated to purchase PPE, safe hand sanitizing washes, and desk covers. And all of these new supplies are extra expenditures that they weren't foreseeing for this school year. So that is another issue with funding. The next guiding question I came up with was, how is enrollment being affected as a result of COVID-19? Private schools have had a decrease in school enrollment due to the pandemic. Most of them have. Private schools are funded by tuition and donations, and with a lot of people losing their jobs again, that's going to affect enrollment, and that's also going to affect their funding. So these questions kind of go hand in hand. Private schools require tuition. I think all private schools require tuition for their kids to actually go there, so that's hard when one parent or both parents aren't working. If you look in the news, there have been a lot of private schools that have actually shut down completely. A lot of California schools have shut down because they just can't afford to stay open with the decrease in enrollment. And for my teacher interview, the teacher said that their enrollment has actually decreased because of the pandemic. 60 students did not return for this new school year because they decided that they did not want to do no in-person classes. They wanted to find a school that would teach them and have their students go there. So that's another issue with parents working and trying to find daycare and everything. They're trying to find schools that will actually allow in-person classes. And this private school does not. They are completely online. The next question I researched was, how are staff being supported during online learning? As we all know, when the pandemic first hit, staff, faculty, students were all thrown for a tailspin. We're at school one day, and the next day we're all online, and we're all trying to make this work. But the schools, many of the private schools that I've looked up, they've actually created like a COVID team to come up with ideas for students and help students and staff. So they're actually creating like kind of a new position to help the virtual learning with tech issues or anything like that, just to help the students and the teachers because it's such a new thing for everybody involved. There's actually one of these schools that I researched, they actually have schools that are doing training and they're like all meeting once a week on Zoom just to express any concerns that anybody in the schools might have. And it's important for communication during these times because it's easy for teachers to feel like they're isolated, alone, and students too. It's extremely important for them all to have a great support system. for the teachers and the students to succeed. So my teacher interviews, she said that they meet once a week as faculty and our grade level for their faculty and their grade level team. Their administrators and grade level chairs are easy, accessible, and they have provided immediate feedback as needed. Grade level teams have also been the strongest source of contact for problem solving, troubleshooting technical difficulties, and offering the latest updates on any of the systems. So the next question I went on to was, what would be a realistic hybrid model of learning? As we knew, I think it was in July, they were talking on the news constantly about what a hybrid model would actually look like for teachers before they decided that for fall, we're all going strictly back online. Realistically, what I've been reading is it's mostly going to be a 2-day a week and then a 2-day at home program so that we have smaller students. And I feel like a lot of them are talking like the first phase of the hybrid model would be students that need the most support. So it would be special needs, elementary, and English learners. They need the most support, so it's important for them to actually be on campus learning not every day in a hybrid model, but it would be more reasonable to have these students be on campus a couple days a week instead of having everybody on campus. Because if some students can succeed on an online model, then they should be able to stay at home if they choose. And during the teacher interview, she said a hybrid model that would be most realistic would be for students to have in-person school 2 days a week and 2 days online. So kind of the same thing. She's also an elementary school teacher, and I was just talking about that today with the school, and they said that they're doing K or JK through 2nd grade. They're doing a hybrid model for them to come back. They're trying to get the waiver through LA County right now, but it's only to 2nd grade. And then the next question I went over was, how are families and teachers effectively communicating about student success during COVID-19? I found a really good source for this. This was EdChoice, and it was actually a survey of 771 private schools across every state in the country. And it basically breaks it down to how much the teachers are communicating with students. The study surveyed non-religious private schools, Christian private schools, and Catholic private schools. 59% of non-religious private schools reported that they would communicate with parents multiple times a week. 16 reported that they would communicate once a day. 11% of non-religious private schools reported that they would communicate once a week. 50% of Christian schools reported that they would communicate with parents multiple times a week, and 16% that they would report with students once a day. 16% reported to communicate at least once a week. 58% of Catholic schools reported to communicate multiple times a week, and 15% reported to communicate once a day. 15% reported to communicate once a week. The data shows that all different types of private schools are effectively communicating with parents. If we're having 60% of these schools communicating once a week, multiple times a week, or once a day, that's great because parents and teachers need to effectively communicate, especially when the students are home all day learning by themselves. So communication is key for student success during online learning. And the teacher interview, she said she gives daily feedback using the agenda, announcements, student work, and highlight success of the class and individual students. So she uses a system called Seesaw, and every day she updates it with their daily assignments and the Zoom link to get on in the morning. So that seems to be working because she can send individual messages out to parents very easily. So that actually seems to have been working very well for her. And then some of the references I used, here's a list of all my references. I would recommend checking out EdWeek and EdChoice. They had a lot of great surveys and articles about that. And it's totally updating every day. So I'd go on the website and I'd see new things posted every day about all different types of schools from charter to private to public. So those are the references that I would recommend if you want to learn more about this. Thank you.